The cathedral bells echoed through the crisp autumn air as Sofia Martinez stood at the altar, her hands trembling beneath the cascading white roses she clutched. At 25, she had imagined her wedding day would be filled with joy and anticipation. Instead, she felt like a prisoner being sentenced. Damian Cross stood beside her, devastatingly handsome in his tailored black suit. At 33, he was one of the youngest tech billionaires in the country, with sharp features, dark hair, and ice-blue eyes that seemed to look through rather than at people. Those eyes had barely glanced at her throughout the ceremony. The marriage was the result of a business contract signed by their grandfathers 30 years ago, a merger agreement that required the union of the two families' heirs. When Damian's uncle had appeared at the Martinez home with legal documents 3 weeks prior, Sofia's world had shattered. Her family's struggling software company would be saved, but the cost was her freedom. "I do," she heard herself say, the words hollow. Damian's response was equally emotionless. When the priest instructed him to kiss his bride, his lips barely brushed hers, cold, perfunctory, devoid of any feeling. The reception at the Cross Hotel was an elaborate affair that Sofia moved through like a ghost. Business associates congratulated Damian on his acquisition while looking at her with thinly veiled pity. She smiled until her face ached, made small talk with strangers, and counted the minutes until she could escape. The limousine ride to Damian's estate was suffocating. Sofia watched the city lights blur past the windows, her wedding bouquet wilting in her lap. She attempted conversation, her voice small in the heavy silence. "Damian, I know neither of us chose this, but perhaps we could at least be friends? We'll be living together, after all." He turned to her then, his expression carved from ice. "Let me be very clear, Sofia. This marriage is a legal obligation, nothing more. You'll have access to the Cross name, a generous allowance, and every privilege that comes with being my wife." He paused, his eyes boring into hers with an intensity that made her breath catch. "But don't expect anything beyond that. I won't pretend affection I don't feel. You may have the house, the money, the social position, but you won't have me." Each word struck like a physical blow. Sofia turned back to the window, biting her lip hard to keep from crying. She refused to let him see how deeply he'd wounded her. The Cross estate was magnificent, a modern architectural marvel of glass and steel nestled in the hills outside the city. 20,000 square feet of cold perfection. The head housekeeper, Mrs. Rivera, showed Sofia to the east wing. "Mr. Cross's suite is in the west wing," Mrs. Rivera said gently, sympathy in her dark eyes. "If you need anything, please don't hesitate to ask." Sofia's bedroom was larger than her childhood home, decorated in shades of gray and white that matched the emotional temperature of her new life. She stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows, looking out at the infinity pool and manicured gardens below, feeling more alone than she'd ever felt. That night, she lay in the enormous bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering how she would survive this beautiful prison. The first weeks blurred together in a haze of loneliness. Damian left before dawn and returned well past midnight. On the rare occasions they crossed paths, he offered curt nods and nothing more. Sofia wandered the mansion like a ghost, discovering rooms that hadn't been used in years. One day, she found the art room, a bright space on the 3rd floor with north-facing windows and canvases stacked against the walls. Mrs. Rivera explained that Damian's mother had been a painter before her death when Damian was 12. Sofia began spending hours there, cleaning old brushes, organizing supplies, and eventually painting again. She'd abandoned her art dreams to help run her family's company, focusing on business instead of passion. Now, with nothing but time, she poured her emotions onto canvas, abstract pieces in blues and grays that captured her isolation. It was painting that kept her sane. That, and the hope that somehow, someday, things might change. But as weeks turned into months with no change in Damian's cold distance, Sofia began to wonder if this was all her life would ever be, a beautiful cage with a husband who couldn't even bear to look at her. 3 months into her marriage, Sophia attended a charity gala for the International Relations Foundation. Damien had declined to accompany her, citing work commitments, so she arrived alone, wearing a silver gown that made her feel elegant even if she felt empty inside. The gala was held at a historic museum, and Sophia found herself drawn to the quieter galleries, away from the crowded ballroom. She was admiring an exhibition of interstellar art when she heard a soft, melodic voice behind her. This piece represents the concept of home in Valorian culture. The swirling patterns symbolize the connections between people rather than physical places. Sophia turned to find a woman standing beside her, but not a human woman. Her skin was a beautiful shade of purple, like twilight, with an iridescent quality that caught the gallery lights. She was tall and elegant, wearing a flowing gown that seemed to shimmer with every movement. Her silver eyes held warmth and curiosity. "I'm Zara," the woman said, offering her hand in the human custom she'd clearly learned. "I'm a cultural ambassador from Valoria. I've been on Earth for 2 months, and I still find your art fascinating and confusing in equal measure." Sophia shook her hand, smiling genuinely for the first time in months. "I'm Sophia. And I think I understand that feeling, being somewhere that should feel like home but doesn't quite fit." Zara's expression brightened with understanding. "Yes, exactly. Everyone here is kind, but I feel like I'm constantly translating not just language but entire ways of thinking. It's exhausting." They spent the rest of the evening talking, moving from the galleries to a quiet terrace overlooking the city. Zara shared stories about Valoria, a world where emotional bonds were valued above all else, where art and music were considered as important as science and technology. Sophia found herself opening up about her situation, carefully avoiding the painful details but admitting she felt trapped in a life that wasn't hers. "On Valoria, we believe that isolation is the greatest suffering," Zara said softly. "Connection is what makes us whole. If you're lonely, Sophia, perhaps we could be friends? I could use someone who understands feeling out of place." "I would love that," Sophia said, meaning it with her whole heart. Zara began visiting the Cross estate regularly. She was fascinated by earth art and culture, and Sophia showed her the art room, introducing her to painting. Zara's approach was completely different from human techniques. She painted with her fingers, creating swirling, emotional pieces that seemed to pulse with life. They laughed together, shared meals, worked on a collaborative art project combining human and Valorian styles for an upcoming cultural exchange exhibition. For the first time since her wedding, Sophia felt alive, seen, valued. What Sophia didn't notice was that Damien had started coming home earlier, that he would find reasons to pass by the art room, hearing Sophia's laughter ring through the hallways. He watched from doorways as she and Zara worked together, heads bent over canvases, speaking in low, animated voices. He saw the way Sophia's face lit up when Zara arrived, the way she smiled without restraint, the way she seemed to bloom in the alien woman's presence. Something dark and possessive twisted in his chest. One evening, Damien arrived home at 6, unheard of in their 3 months of marriage. He found Sophia and Zara in the living room, working on presentation materials for their exhibition. Sophia was explaining color theory, her hands moving expressively, her eyes bright with passion. "Good evening," Damien said from the doorway, his voice startling them both. Sophia looked up, surprise flickering across her face. "Damien. You're home early." "I live here," he said, the words coming out sharper than intended. His eyes moved to Zara, and he forced his expression into something more neutral. "I don't believe we've been introduced." "This is Zara," Sophia said, standing. "She's a cultural ambassador from Valoria." "Zara, this is my husband, Damien Cross." Zara stood gracefully, offering her hand. "It's a pleasure to meet you, Mr. Cross. Sophia has told me so much about your beautiful home." Damien shook her hand briefly, noting how Sophia had described his house but apparently not him. "Welcome. I hope Sophia is being a good host." "The best," Zara said warmly, her silver eyes moving between them with obvious perception. "She's been teaching me about earth art. She's extraordinarily talented. You must be very proud." Of course, Damien said automatically, though he realized with a jolt that he'd never actually seen Sophia's work. He'd avoided the art room, the space too filled with memories of his mother. Over the next weeks, Damien found himself manufacturing reasons to be home when Zara visited. He told himself it was simple curiosity about the alien diplomat, but he knew it was a lie. He wanted to see Sophia, the version of her that laughed freely, that spoke with passion about art and culture, that existed when he wasn't around to freeze her with his coldness. That he began joining them for dinners, sitting at the table and listening to their conversations. Zara was perceptive and kind, including him naturally while never pushing. Sophia was more guarded around him, her brightness dimming slightly when he entered a room. It hurt more than he wanted to admit. One evening, as Zara prepared to leave, she turned to Damien in the foyer. "May I speak candidly, Mr. Cross? Please." "Sophia is special," Zara said, her silver eyes serious. "In Valorian culture, we can sense emotional bonds. The connection between you two is strong, but it's tangled, blocked by fear and pain. Whatever walls you've built, they're hurting you both." Before Damien could respond, she continued, "On my world, we have a saying, love unexpressed is a song unsung. It exists, but no one can hear its beauty. Think about what music you're keeping silent." She left, leaving Damien standing in the foyer, her words echoing in his mind. That night, unable to sleep, he finally walked to the art room. What he found there stole his breath. The awakening. The art room was filled with Sophia's work, dozens of canvases that told a story of pain and gradual healing. The early pieces were all cold blues and harsh grays, abstract representations of isolation and despair. But the recent ones, created since Zara's arrival, bloomed with warmer colors, golds and purples and soft greens. They were still melancholic but held notes of hope. Damien stood in the center of the room, surrounded by his wife's soul laid bare in paint, and felt something crack inside his chest. He'd done this to her. His coldness had created those early pieces. And someone else, Zara, had brought the color back into her world. He was still standing there when Sophia appeared in the doorway, wrapped in a silk robe, her dark hair loose around her shoulders. "Damien? What are you doing here?" "Looking at your work," he said quietly. "It's extraordinary, Sophia. You're extraordinary." She wrapped her arms around herself defensively. "You've had 3 months to look. Why now?" "Because I'm an idiot," he said simply. "Because I've been so focused on protecting myself that I didn't see what I was destroying." Before Sophia could respond, the doorbell rang, an unusual occurrence at 11 at night. Mrs. Rivera appeared moments later, her expression troubled. "Mr. Cross, there's a Victoria Ashford here. She says she needs to speak with you urgently." Damien's jaw tightened. "Tell her I'm not available." "Who's Victoria?" Sophia asked. "My ex-fiancée," Damien said, his voice tight. "We broke up a year ago. I have no idea why she's here." But Victoria didn't wait for permission. She swept into the art room in a designer dress, her blonde hair perfect, her smile sharp as she took in the scene. "Damien, darling, we need to talk about the merger proposal. Your phone has been going to voicemail for days." Her eyes landed on Sophia with barely concealed disdain. "Oh. The contract wife. How quaint." "Victoria, leave," Damien said coldly. "I'm trying to help you," Victoria said, moving closer to him. "People are talking, Damien. They're saying you've gone soft, that you're distracted by playing house with this girl. The board is concerned." She turned to Sophia, her voice dripping with false sympathy. "Sweetie, you seem nice, but you need to understand what this is. Damien married you out of obligation. He doesn't love you, he can't. He's incapable of it. I tried for 3 years and got nothing but ice. You're just a box he needed to check for business purposes." Each word landed like a blade. Sophia felt her face flush, all her insecurities rushing back. "That's enough," Damien said, his voice dangerous. Is it true? Sophia asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Is that all I am to you? An obligation? Sophia, Damien started. Just answer the question, she said, tears threatening. Am I just a business transaction you're stuck with? Victoria laughed. Of course you are. Damien doesn't do emotions. He's a brilliant businessman, but emotionally he's a wasteland. Trust me, I know. Get out, Damien said to Victoria, his voice shaking with rage. Now. Before I have security remove you. Victoria shrugged, gathering her purse. I tried to warn you both. Enjoy your business arrangement. She left, her heels clicking on the marble floors. Sophia turned away, wiping her eyes. She's right, isn't she? Everything she said is true. No, Damien said desperately. Sophia, look at me. Why should I? She asked, her voice breaking. You've barely looked at me in 3 months. You made it clear on our wedding night that I mean nothing to you. And now suddenly you're in my art room, looking at my paintings, and I don't know what you want from me. I want you, Damien said, the words ripping from somewhere deep inside him. I want you, Sophia, and it terrifies me. She turned to face him, confusion and hurt warring in her expression. What? Do you think I come home early because I want to see Zara? He asked, moving closer. I come home to see you. To hear you laugh, to watch you light up when you talk about art, to torture myself with everything I pushed away. Then why did you push me away in the first place? Sophia demanded. Why did you say those horrible things on our wedding night? Damien ran his hands through his hair, his carefully maintained control crumbling. Because I was terrified. My mother died when I was 12, Sophia. She was the only person who ever really loved me, and losing her nearly destroyed me. My father buried himself in work, became cold and distant. I learned that love meant pain, that caring about someone meant giving them the power to devastate you. He took another step closer. When I saw you at the altar, looking so beautiful and so heartbroken, I knew you didn't want this marriage. I knew you'd been forced into it just like me. And I couldn't bear the thought of falling for you, opening myself up to you, only to have you leave the moment you could. So I pushed you away first. That's not fair, Sophia said, tears streaming down her face now. You didn't give me a choice. You decided I would hurt you and punished me for it before I could even try. I know, Damien said, his own eyes glistening. I know, and I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Sophia. But watching you with Zara, seeing you happy without me, it's been killing me. Because I realized that Victoria was wrong about one thing. I'm not incapable of love. I've been falling in love with you since the day you first laughed in this house, since the moment I saw your paintings and realized how deeply you feel everything. Sophia shook her head, backing away. You can't do this. You can't ignore me for months, make me feel worthless, and then suddenly decide you love me because you're jealous of my friendship. I'm not jealous of your friendship, Damien said, closing the distance between them. I'm jealous that Zara got to see the real you while I was too much of a coward to try. I'm jealous that she made you smile while I only made you cry. He reached up to cup her face gently, his thumbs brushing away her tears. Sophia, I don't deserve your forgiveness. I don't deserve a second chance. But I'm begging for one anyway. Let me prove that I can be the husband you deserved from the beginning. Let me show you that this marriage can be more than a contract. Sophia looked up at him, seeing vulnerability in his ice blue eyes for the first time. I'm scared, she whispered. I'm scared to believe you. What if you change your mind? What if you push me away again? Then you can leave, Damien said simply. I'll tear up the contract myself. I won't trap you in a loveless marriage, Sophia. But please, give me one chance to prove I'm capable of more. I have feelings for you too, Sophia admitted, her voice breaking. I hate that I do, but I can't help it. Even when you were cruel, I found myself wanting your approval, wanting you to see me. I see you, Damien breathed. I see you, Sophia, and you're the most beautiful thing in my world. He leaned down slowly, giving her time to pull away. When she didn't, when she instead tilted her face up to his, he kissed her. The kiss was nothing like their wedding day. It was desperate and tender, full of months of longing and regret. Sophia's hands fisted in his shirt, pulling him closer, while Damien's arms wrapped around her waist as if afraid she might disappear. When they finally broke apart, both breathing heavily, Damien rested his forehead against hers. Come to bed with me. Not the guest room in the East Wing. Our bedroom. Let me show you what our marriage could be. Sophia nodded.